Hey, what's going on, everyone? Welcome back to my channel. This is Living to Learn. Thank you so much for taking the time out of your precious day, your precious life, really, to listen to what I have to say about anything. And so I really appreciate it. Appreciate your views. Please subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. And before I get started, I just want to mention a couple of things. Again, this is regular. Beginning of my videos, I typically will point out these two things. Number one is my Instagram and TikTok handle at Live to Learn Coaching. You can find the handle in the description of the video. Sorry. At Live to Learn Coaching. Follow me on TikTok, on Instagram. You can also reach out to me. That's probably the easiest way to get a hold of me. If you need to get a hold of me, if you have questions, if you want me to cover a certain topic, if you want to provide some constructive criticism or even a pat on the back for something you think I did or said well, that's how you can reach me, right? At Live to Learn Coaching. Also in the description of my video, you're going to find 3 opportunities to donate to this channel financially. Again, that's not something that you have to do, but if that is where you want to take your support, you feel strongly about what I'm doing, you think that this is important, you just like the fact that I'm putting these videos out as consistently as I have been, that's really going to be helpful. And again, it helps me just continue to do this consistently. Don't have to do it, but thank you to those of you who have already done so. I really do appreciate it. Now, let's get started. We are in a series. Today is part 2. Last week was part 1. It's about critical thinking. It's about what I think is a very important topic, what I think is a very important tool, what I think is something that we should really be working on, especially if you are a citizen or a resident, or you're just here, however you're here in the United States. You know that this is a presidential year. You know that there is a lot of conflict, a lot of butting heads online, in person, people's different political views, people's different opinions and reactions and responses to what's going on around us. I have my own opinion as well. I have my own stance as well. But this is not about me or where I stand on this, political spectrum, if you will, or where my opinion lies. It's really about what I think we should be focusing on, right? Versus, instead of focusing on the differences, which there are many and there always will be. And I'm not advocating for us to just agree with each other just because. Conflict can be healthy. Conflict and then resolution is very healthy. But sometimes some dust needs to get kicked up. Sometimes some hard discussions, hard talks, arguments, a little bit of back and forth, a little bit of dialogue, even if it's intense, sometimes that is necessary, that is required. But it's really all about how are we responding? And this is where critical thinking is key. Now, last week I talked about questioning our assumptions. When you assume, that's an ultimate mental shortcut. That's one of the laziest forms of thinking, if not the laziest. Why? Because you're just gonna say, you're assuming, you're just saying, well, that's gotta be true because that's the story. That's the picture that's been painted to me. That's how I recognize it. That's how I see it. So yeah, I'm going to start there. Like, that's my starting point. And that doesn't require much intelligence. It definitely does not require any critical thinking. So last week, I talked about the importance of questioning those things. Question those things. Don't just think that everyone sees the world the way that you do. And this is something, again, when this concept really hit home, and I've talked about the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, I've talked about what that book did, how it changed my life, how it changed my outlook on life. But once that concept hit home, that the way I see the world is the way I see it. It's not the way that it is. Had I grown up over here, had I been raised this way, had I been influenced by this culture or by this type of household, my worldview would be completely different. So for me to just think that or assume that, hey, this is the world because that's how it looks to me, that doesn't require any critical thinking, and it's disrespectful to the faculties that you and I have, the faculties that you and I have been given. And I don't care if you believe in a creator or not. You are an excellent specimen. You and I, as human beings, we are something to behold. We are very complex, and we have these faculties, these places where we can judge things, we can make decisions, we have a consciousness, we have an understanding. And it's something that should not be disrespected by assuming. So that's what I talked about last week. This week, I want to talk about, what do we do? Now we've already said, I'm going to question my assumptions, right? We're open now. Now we're open to thinking. We're open to a different point of view. I'm not saying it's going to change your mind. I'm not saying you need to change your mind. I'm just saying for those of us that are looking for something more, productive in this space, rather than just going back and forth and hating each other. The next thing we want to do is we want to evaluate ideas. We want to evaluate points of view. In order for us to strengthen our critical thinking skills, we've got to learn how to evaluate ideas. We've got to learn how to evaluate these things that we are coming in contact with. Someone else's opposing view. Now, here's a very effective technique, and I've talked about this on other videos, because it's something I learned when I've told you this story many times. I'll say it again. I took a 3-day course at a trading academy, learning about day trading in the markets and things like that. It was it was a great class. I met some cool people in there. I took some great, key takeaways. I'm not a full-time 100% professional day trader yet, but it was very cool, and it got me started on that, on that journey. But one of the things that I learned from our instructor was the 5 whys. And it's a very effective technique. And I would encourage us to see how we can apply this during this season, in this climate, in our country, how we could apply this when we are coming in contact or being confronted with ideas that are not in line with ours, right? Different opinions, different points of view. And this is how it works. When you evaluate an idea or a situation, start by asking yourself, why? Let me give you an example. Let's say I want to go back to school to get, my doctorate, or I want to go back to school to get a PhD, right? I have my BA, I've got an MBA. I'm grateful I was able to make it, because it was not easy. But what if I want to go back to school? Well, the first thing I should ask is why. Now, and this is what's cool about it. You start by asking why, and then for each answer that you get, so each answer I get after that first why, I ask why again, up to 5 times. Now, I don't know if it just gets redundant doing it more than 5 times. I don't really know where the 5 came from, but if you've ever practiced this, if you've ever attempted to practice this, you're not only going to see how this helps us dig deeper, you're also going to find out how difficult it is. Again, going back to last week, the assumptions, why it is so important to start with the questioning of assumptions, because I think that our brains, especially in our modern society where we want things fast, we want things quick, we just want to know, like just Google it, just put it in ChatGPT, just find out. I think that we just we want to autopilot to assumptions rather than doing the hard work of digging deeper. And that, in my opinion, also lies at part of the issues that we have in agreeing to disagree with each other. But what the 5 whys technique and any other technique similar to it is going to do, it's going to help us to look for, it's going to force us to look for root causes or underlying factors of an idea. Here's our first why. Why is this important? Why is it important for me to find the root causes? Why is it important for me to see the underlying factors of an idea? Let me explain. Because to understand how this idea, how this concept, how this opinion, how this point of view, how this ideology, this belief, etc., how this came to appear as it does at the surface level, what we're seeing, or how it came to look the way it does at face value, in order for us to understand, we've got to look at what's happening behind it or beneath it. I'll say it again. In order for us to understand why we're seeing what we're seeing, why that idea, that belief, that ideology, that point of view, why it looks that way at surface level, is we have to look at what's happening behind it or beneath it. Have you ever met an angry person? You know, I had a friend when I was growing up. We used to hang out. We couldn't hang out that much because this guy just liked to fight. He had a very short temper, and he liked to fight. Now, here's the challenge. When you encounter someone who is angry like that, when you encounter someone who is confrontational, when you encounter someone like that, it's very hard for us to be compassionate toward that individual. Because what we don't see the weeping. We don't see the mourning. Angry people are some of the most saddest individuals walking our planet. But if we don't look beneath the anger, if we don't look at what's behind it, we're not going to understand it. And this is what I'm giving us for this everything that's going on right now around us. It's a challenge for me as well. I think that's part of why I made this series. I'm challenging myself because this is something I need to get better at. I have to stop seeing it for what it looks like at face value, what's at the surface, and I need to start looking for what is behind that, what is beneath that, because that's going to tell us the real story. And so we should get much better at evaluating ideas, because that is going to increase, that is going to strengthen our critical thinking ability, our critical thinking skills. And why is that important? It's going to allow us to see more nuance, have less assumptions about what we're encountering, and utilize this to its full capacity. We owe that to ourselves. We should have enough respect for ourselves, our minds, our faculties, that we want to do this. So I hope you've enjoyed this. Have a great day.